Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracing the shockwaves from a single geopolitical flashpoint all the way to your stock portfolio. We're going to break down how one naval confrontation in the Middle East managed to put multi-billion-dollar markets all over the world on high alert.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. This high-stakes warning is what set the entire world on edge. This statement, reportedly coming from the US president, basically put a ticking clock on some very, very fragile peace negotiations. It was a warning that without a deal by April 22nd, military action was right back on the table. So, how did we get here? Well, the immediate reason wasn't just words. It was a pretty dramatic confrontation out at sea that basically poured fuel on an already smoldering fire. This right here, this single event on April 19th, was the spark. The U.S. Navy's seizure of the container ship Skrutska, saying it violated a blockade. Look, this wasn't just some routine enforcement action. No way. This was seen as a major escalation by all sides involved. And you can imagine, from Iran's perspective, this was a clear provocation. Their foreign ministry didn't mince words at all, labeling the seizure an act of piracy and making it crystal clear that this was an unacceptable breach of their sovereignty. They demanded the immediate return of the ship and its crew. What's really interesting here is just how quickly all of this cascaded. I mean, you have the seizure on the 19th, which was followed almost immediately by Iran reclosing the vital Strait of Hormuz, choking off a key global shipping lane. And all of this is happening with that hard April 22nd ceasefire deadline just looming over everything. You know, this whole confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum. It sent tremors directly into the heart of some really sensitive diplomatic negotiations. Negotiations that were supposed to be preventing exactly this kind of scenario. The official plan was actually to de-escalate. A high-level American delegation, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, was already on its way to Pakistan for a second round of peace talks. This was supposed to be the off-ramp from the conflict. And this just perfectly illustrates the diplomatic standoff. You have the U.S. delegation literally in the air heading to the negotiating table, while Iran, absolutely furious over the ship seizure, is publicly signaling that they might not even show up. It's a high-stakes game of political chicken. Now, while the diplomats were standing their ground, global investors, well, they started running for cover because that uncertainty of will they or won't they talk, that is absolute poison for financial markets. So here's the crucial point. Markets hate uncertainty more than almost anything. The fear that talks could collapse and lead to open conflict, that drove this massive flight to safety, where investors just dump what they see as riskier assets, like stocks, and try to find safer ones. This table gives us a really powerful snapshot of the damage. We see the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 both dipping, but then look at the decentralized finance market. A staggering $14 billion in value just evaporated. It really shows the pain was felt across both traditional and digital finance. And to put the stock market's reaction in perspective, this wasn't just some minor dip for the NASDAQ. No, this snapped a record-breaking 13-day winning streak, which was the longest in over 30 years. All of that positive momentum was just wiped out in a single day by geopolitical fear. But here's where things get kind of weird. In the world of crypto, the story was a lot more complex. You might expect everything to fall in lockstep, but the reality was surprisingly divided. Not all digital assets reacted the same way to the threat of war. So while most markets were bleeding red, Bitcoin showed this remarkable resilience. After an initial dip overnight to below $74,000, it actually rebounded, climbing back above $76,000 as traders seemed to be holding out this cautious optimism that the peace talks might still happen. This contrast is fascinating, isn't it? It shows Bitcoin behaving almost like a digital safe haven asset in the middle of all the chaos, while the broader and often seen as riskier DeFi space took that massive hit. It's a really clear split in how investors were perceiving risk inside the crypto ecosystem. And that DeFi sell-off wasn't just about war fears. It was compounded by a terrible stroke of timing. A massive, nearly $300 million hack of a project called Kelp DAO happened over the weekend. So this exploit added internal fear to the external fear, creating a perfect storm for investors to flee. Okay, so let's connect all these pieces as the clock ticks down. We have a naval incident, stalled diplomacy, and volatile markets all converging on one critical date. Here, you can see the direct chain of events. It's a perfect domino effect. The seizure of the Tosca immediately jeopardized the Islamabad talks. And the moment those talks were in doubt, financial markets reacted, essentially placing bets on the likelihood of a conflict.
And here is the key takeaway from all of this. It's a powerful illustration that a single ship in the Strait of Hormuz can directly impact the value of your retirement account in Ohio or a DeFi protocol run by developers all over the globe. Old world conflicts and new world finance are completely inseparable now. And this leaves us with the urgent multi-trillion-dollar question hanging over the entire global economy. With that deadline just hours away, the fate of the ceasefire, and the markets, it all hinges on whether diplomats can find a way back to the table. What happens next is anybody's guess.